Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video, I want to talk about 10 things that are going to help you win more games in Nightreign now. I've been doing a lot of random matches, and there's so many people that just have no organization whatsoever. Part of that is the lack of communication, which I've talked about in other videos, but there's also things that people aren't doing in an organized manner, and they're losing games as a result. First things first, you need to clear the initial camp and hit level 2 right away. Regardless of whoever marks whatever on the map immediately, go to that initial camp, take out the enemies, and get to level 2 immediately. Can't really go wrong with this, and it's going to give you more levels in the long run, and getting to level 2 can actually prevent you from being one hit from a lot of the early enemies that you're going to run across in Nightreign. If you're struggling and you're running past that camp or jumping right to churches, you're probably doing something wrong already right when the game starts. Take out that camp, level up immediately, and then if there's a church nearby, head to it. And we're going to go now into our next tip. The next tip on here, I've seen people travel across the entire map, and I mentioned this in one other video, to go to churches without stopping anything on the way, like for anything on the way. Don't do that. Literally, if there's a church nearby, like in this case, go to the church, grab your upgrade for your flask so you have more, but at the same time, don't travel across the entire map unless you're stopping to take out bosses in the meantime. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. Next tip up here that I want to talk about is look for the cathedrals and ruins right away. They're going to typically be easier to clear out, and it's going to be really helpful to clear these out as fast as possible early on, get you some levels, and also get you that awesome upgrade that the boss is going to drop. These bosses, if you're running a 3-man crew, are really easy for the most part. They're not going to be overwhelming or too challenging. You're going to be able to take down these bosses fast in no time, start leveling up, and continue pushing through your journey in Nightreign. I recommend checking out the Cathedral and Ruins as soon as you hit around level 3 or 4, certainly by level 5 or so. And the next one on here that we're going to talk about is grabbing Stonesword keys. I see a lot of people not going to the Evergaols or not looking for Stonesword keys. These are a great way to get more runes and another buff from a boss. Make sure you grab the Stonesword key in the Cathedral. If there's a boss in the Cathedral, go clear out that boss immediately. And then again, you're constantly in a hurry with Nightreign. That's kind of how the game works. So after you defeat that boss, you're going to go to an Evergaol right after that, like immediately. Don't wait. Go right to it immediately after that if there's one nearby. If there's not one nearby, then of course you're going to make your way there by defeating bosses and clearing out areas on the way over there. It's really that simple, and it's another mistake I've seen people make is not look for these or care about them, or not stopping at Evergaols or looking in the chest for them. Most of the cathedrals will have Stonesword keys. Not all. A lot of the forts have them too. It's really important. And of course, once you get to the Stonesword key area, you're going to want to have your whole group with you. This is a little bit challenging with randoms, but make sure you mark the map so you can take these guys out. Once you take these guys out, you're going to end up getting a boss buff too, which is really helpful. Another Site of Grace too, which is awesome, and you can level up in the process. These need to be cleared out efficiently. Again, it's all a time thing when it comes to Nightreign. You really have to be in a hurry, like you need to hurry up fast. I've seen so many random groups that are just incredibly sluggish from the start. Have you been in a match like that where immediately you're with randoms and you could tell they're moving at such a slow rate that you already know you're going to hit maybe level 10 by the end of the game? If you want to get between 12 and 15, closer to 15, you need to hustle. You need to do everything quickly as a group, and even if you're with randoms, make sure you're marking the areas on the map and showing them, hey, this is where I'm going and this is what we need to be doing. And next up, for the next tip on here that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the purple smithing stone in the cave. You should be getting this on day 1. Don't wait till day 2 to go to the caves. You're going to be wasting too much time on day 2. Day 2 is too important. You're going to want to defeat bosses at that point and get more levels and whatnot. So towards the end, roughly, if there's a cave in the area, especially in the second circle of day 1, you should be going to get that purple smithing stone to get you a guaranteed purple weapon upgrade for whatever weapon you have, which could make your main weapon upgraded to purple once you run into a merchant, and sometimes you could even find the other smithing stone you need in the caves. This is really important and paramount to winning games. I found that when I do get this purple smithing stone and I guaranteed a good purple weapon, I do much better in the long run and end up succeeding in more rounds. It's definitely something you should be picking up. And next up on the list of tips, we have know when you have time. Sometimes when the circle is closing in, you're going to have a certain amount of time to take down a boss, but there's a lot of groups that do not understand what time is when that circle is closing in. you're going to want to make sure that you have enough time as that circle closes in on you to take down whatever boss you're facing. If it seems like you don't have a lot of time or you're just starting the fight and the circle's closing in, you need to get out and run away. I've seen so many groups go down exactly in that scenario. It's never worth it. Just fight the boss, and guess what? If it ends up not being a win, no big deal, you just run. If you believe you could take them down, you probably get a sight of grace, and then you can run back to a safe area from there. It's just important to know how far down the boss's health is before you make that decision. Tough boss is another issue that I'm finding with randoms, especially with groups that you really don't know who you're playing with. They really need to add communication, but you should be taking on the tougher bosses with all three of you guys. I've seen a lot of people trying to take them on by themselves and solo them. They're meant for 3 players. Certainly there's people out there with the skill set to solo them, no question about that. But if you're not with one of those teams, or you're not one of those people, you need to be taking these guys on with 3 people. Chrono Tree Sentinel notoriously is incredibly tough in this game, even harder than he was in Elden Ring. Keep that in mind. When you take on these tough bosses, you're going to want your group with you for the entire thing, and the fights actually go a lot quicker that way too. Make sure you're proper level, usually around 9 or 10 by that point at least, I would say, and you could take down the tougher bosses no problem with the help of your group. And the next one on here we're going to talk about is going to be those spectral locations that you see on the map. You should typically be doing these around level 10 or so, maybe a little bit later. I would say like 8 minimum. But for these, the main concept here is if you have your whole group, of course, you're going to want to take out the invaders because they give you a lot of runes. Sometimes with these, you can even complete objectives that will give you even more runes. These are absolutely worth checking out. And this is another mistake I see people make. They'll go to these by themselves or too early. If you see one of these locations on the map and you're low level, do not go through here because these enemies do some of the highest damage in the game. But if you're later on and you have the levels, you're going to want to take these out, especially for the objectives and taking down the invaders, which are typically your starting class characters that attack you. Of course, in this case, they're just NPCs. They're not actual players. But even so, they're worth it most of the time as long as you do this later on. Particularly if you've already cleared out something like the castle and you don't have shifting earth, for example, you would go to an area like this, get a decent number of runes, and of course, again, you want to bring your whole team with you. And that's really another mistake I've seen for sure. Like, it is tough. It is tough to take these guys down. You're going to want that whole group there when you do these. So make sure you mark it on the map. And again, if you have to lead and nobody else is, they're just running around, nobody else is really paying attention, just mark it on the map. And eventually they usually find their way to figure out like where you're headed, especially when you do churches. Because if you start to mark the locations along the map on the way to the church across the map, they start to realize, hey, that's where you're heading. You're heading in the direction of the church. They'll go that way too. And they'll, of course, be stopping along the way because you're starting to mark the things along the way instead of running across the whole map to get to a church. I found it really disappointing with randoms to that extent where sometimes they don't listen and they don't pay attention to the markers on the map and they're not marking anything themselves. I wish we did have communication, but there's a lot of groups, you'd be surprised, that will follow you when you start to mark locations, and then you end up in locations like these ones where the enemies are really tough, but they become a lot less tough when you have your whole team with you. When your team's there to help you fight, it gets so much easier, and these guys do a lot of damage after all, so this is something you want to take on later on, of course, with a 3-man crew. And the next tip on here that I want to talk about is, if you're struggling, play Ironeye and hang back. Ironeye is going to be one of the most easiest characters to learn and understand quickly, especially if you're able to get a relic to put a status effect on his arrows. He could build up status incredibly quickly as well. And then, of course, if you're a newer player, you can hang back. In this case, I went up close, did my targeting ability. You're going to want to do that. But typically, you can hang back with Ironeye. You can play it a lot safer, and he's a really easy character to learn and understand. If you're picking Executor because you think the Samurai is cool and then you're just like parrying or attempting to parry all the bosses while things are going really fast, you're probably not going to do well right off the get-go from your teammates. I would probably say Ironeye is a really good choice for beginners once you learn the basics of his abilities. You're going to be an asset to your team in terms of DPS, and of course also your ability to build up poison, frost, whatever relics you can find passively to make Ironeye more powerful. He's one of those characters that could be a use to the team pretty much every time. I really love Ironeye. He's actually the only character right now that I've soloed as. I beat Augur and Gladius solo. I'm working my way through the bosses. I did mention in a review recently that I had some issues with the game, and it is getting a little bit boring in the sense that it is very redundant. I'm hoping they add more to it. I've mentioned that several times. But overall, it can be a really fun game. You just need to hustle. I've seen a lot of people with random groups, a lot of bad experiences where people aren't using the map to their advantage, and they're just kind of running all over the place with no organization. Trust me, you're going to lose if you're just running around in circles doing nothing. And I've also seen groups stand there, just literally stand there going through like an entire camp, like every section. You don't have that much time. This is not Elden Ring. Unfortunately, we don't have that degree of time. We've got that circle closing in on us all the time. So knowing that, it's going to make your life a lot easier if you just learn to make the best use of the time that you do have. You're going to win more matches as a result. And this couldn't be more true. Like, I've won a ton of matches in which the groups hustled, or I had a group where I was, of course, communicating with friends. But at the same time, even with randoms, when they were going from place to place and everybody was marking stuff and we were on the same level, even though we weren't communicating, we were able to move at the same degree. If you can't do that and you're hanging around and you're just wasting time, you're going to lose when you get to the Nightlord because your level's going to be too low, you're not going to have enough buffs from the bosses, and your weapons aren't going to be upgraded either because you wasted a ton of time. And I'm not trying to be that guy that's like telling you you're playing the game the wrong way, but I've just seen this time and time again when it comes to random groups where people are just, I'm still wondering what they're doing. I look at them and they're just like looking around, walking around, and I'm like marking stuff on the map and they're not going anywhere. They're just hanging there after the boss is defeated. You don't have time to hang around after the boss is defeated, so pick a character like Ironeye if you're just starting out, or whatever character you're comfortable with, and then move through the map efficiently with your group at a very, very good pace. If you're not able to do that, then I hate to say it, but Nightreign really might not be the game for you because it's all about speed. It's really just one giant speed run after all. You're running through everything as fast as you possibly can to get to the Nightlord at the end, and you will only make it there if you use your time efficiently. Next up on here I want to talk about is the last one, and that is Nightlords. Patience is key. There is no time limit once you get to the Nightlords. This is a mistake I see people making all the time as well. Another mistake. They'll run to the Nightlord immediately, trying to hurry everything up, and it happens all the time. You'd be surprised the number of people that immediately run at the Nightlords and are trying to drain their HP quickly. Yes, it's good if you have a powerful build, but keep in mind, you have a lot of time here. Now, of course, I went down as Ironeye because he's like a total of one hit, but I do get picked up here. Overall, though, with the Nightlords, just remember, you're not on a time limit here. This is the one part of the game where you have as much time as you need, and if you hang back, take your time, and even if you're an average player like myself, you could still contribute to the team quite well. And I really hope people understand that tip ultimately when it comes to night bosses in Elden Ring Nightreign. It's really one of those things where even if you're like me and you're not playing perfectly, which is me a lot of the times, you will get much better if you realize you're using your time efficiently. You're the right level when you get there. I was a little low at level 12. I usually hit 13 or 14 ultimately. It is hard to hit 15, a little bit easier solo because you get more runes, but typically in co-op you want to be minimum of 12, between 12 and 14 in that range is reasonable if you're making good use of the time that the game gives you. But yeah, Nightlords, yeah, super challenging. Of course, they're the hardest part of the game. They're typically, when you get here, there's a decent chance you may end up losing. It happens. It's going to happen from time to time. You're going to get there, actually, from more than time to time. You're going to get there and lose a decent amount. But of course, you're going to win a decent amount too if your team is efficient, if you're paying attention. This was like my second time, I believe this clip was from, fighting this boss, and we were able to take him down with a completely random group, which only really worked because, one, I was lucky and I did have good teammates, of course, but at the same time, I kind of knew my place. I knew as Ironeye, I needed to hang back, not be a liability to the team, and before the match started, I looked at the weakness, and I went for fire affinity, and I looked for fire affinity bows as well to exploit the boss's weakness. Every boss, when you go to the table, is going to tell you what weakness they have. It's always best to use that weakness against them because they're going to take more damage as a result. A lot of people forget that. I've seen so many people fight Gaping Jaw where not a single person has poison on them, despite the fact that if you use poison, it quite literally stops him in his tracks entirely and makes the fight 1,000 times easier. He's also really weak to frost as well. A lot of the bosses also do take great frost damage, and that could give you a debuff where your whole team has increased damage afterwards. Keep in mind, though, fire does reset frost. But yeah, the time limit thing when Nightlords, it's really one of those things you just need to get there, focus up as much as you can, and take your time as a team. Don't rush it too much. If you rush it, you are all going to go down in the end. That's all that's going to happen as a result, and you'll end up losing. And it's an unfortunate outcome that a lot of people have when they run right into the Nightlords or think they could take them down in like 2 minutes or less, when it's really most of the time going to be a fight that's on the longer side. And of course, in this fight, if you get the chance to, you're going to want to hit the moth or butterfly or whatever it is as much as you can, because if you're Ironeye, you're the character that can hit the moth or butterfly, so you don't have to really worry about targeting the bottom one. You want to target the top one, takes increased fire damage, hang back, and try not to be too much of a liability to your team. And that's pretty much everything. I hope this helps you get better at Nightreign. As I was kind of like finishing up Nightreign, finished my character guides and everything, I wanted to go through some mistakes that I saw a lot of random players making, and I wanted to make it easier for you to make your time efficient, to make sure you're moving through the map the right way, starting at the early, easy areas, moving through it that way, not running across the whole map to go to churches. If you do that, you're going to stop at places along the way, and of course, using the time it gives you and making the best of it. Even though it's not a lot of time, you could still make the best of it. If this video helped you, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and share as well. And of course, if you want any more tips for Elden Ring Nightreign or any other Souls games, or I guess, I don't know, I don't really play roguelikes, but I guess this is a roguelike after all with Souls elements, comment below your thoughts and everything in that regard. I hope I help you get better at Nightreign. I will catch you guys in the next video.